Let your curiosity rise.
Mad Bricks webcast,
Where the human spirit flies. Mad Bricks webcast, where the human spirit flies.
Hey, welcome to the Medbix webcast. This is Ramana Annamaraju. I'm the host. Let me, we have Susan is missing in action today. She has something came up. She is not there today, so my co-host is missing. But I'm going to talk with my good buddy. Some of the people that we don't met them. I have not met him, but he becomes like a friend, a very close friend. I feel like he's a close friend. Renzo Del Castillo. I'm going to talk with him, but I want to tell you something. There's a guy painting and poetry, all these things. I used to think as a scientist, it's like a car crash to me. I don't see the difference between the painting and poetry and a car crash. I used to be that bad. But I tell you something, one what happened was I dropped my son into the school in Vanderbilt University from Atlanta. I last, I was very close to my children and I was doing everything there. Then he got admission in the Vanderbilt, and we are taking him and then dropping him there first time. You know, I used to work with a lot of doctors. I used to go to a lot of dinners and lunches. I used to take a food, one day is Indian, other days sushi, other days Mexican, all these different foods I used to take, and then including Peruvian food. We have a very restaurant close to the next to the my house that I used to take them. All of a sudden, that guy, I used to go in the late night because all my meetings were late. So by the time I go there, he went to bed. Both kids are my daughter and son, almost in the bed. So I don't know much. Then in the morning when I get up, is all the food is gone, empty. you know you know so I used to so this is the situation. When I dropped my son, I came back, and then the food is piling up in the fridge. Then on that day I got emotional. Oh my God, I left him in an emptiness syndrome taking place. And then I was thinking, oh, I missed him. I miss my children, I miss my son. He was staying around the football. I used to go to his football games, and he was a football player in the school. It is tough. It is. So I came across a poem, okay, by Khalil Gibran. This poem is very. I want to tell you this poem. I'm going to read it for a few lines. Khalil Gibran is a poet. He moved to the United States and he lived in New York, and he wrote a beautiful English poems. One of them is the children. Your children are not your children. They are the sons and daughters of a life longing for itself. They came through you, but not from you. And though they are with you, yet they belong not to you. You may give them your love, but not your thoughts. For they have their own thoughts. You may house their bodies, but not their souls. And it is, you may strive to be like them, but seek not to make them like you. Certainly not. Yeah, I should don't want to be. For life goes not backward, not tarries with the yesterday. You are the how bows from which you were children. Beautiful poem. It's really touched me. So I send this poem to all my friends who are sending their kids to the colleges. I used to send this poem. They feel very emotional, connected to this poem. This really changed my mind about poetry. This is a beautiful poem. So that is my connection with the poetry. Then I started falling in love. I started writing after that, and I'm not a poet. I don't know how to write poetry, but I write a lot of stories, small short stories in medicine. That became a thing. But let me introduce you my good friend Renzo Del Castillo. He is a healthcare executive. He worked with one of my the organization. I know now it's acquired by Optum organization. That let him explain if he wants to explain that one. But he was working for a major organization as an executive there, but now he moved on to the his own entrepreneurship, and then he is doing his own consulting work and all those things. And then he's an excellent poet, a award-winning poet. And he chronicled his immigrant experience. He's from Lima, Peru. Let him talk with you. Let me bring him to the table. Renzo Del Castillo. I said, I hope I said his name. Welcome, Renzo. Welcome to the Medbig cast.
Good to see you, my friend. How are you, Ramana?
Good, good, good. Tell me. You need to raise a little bit. Your. Can you raise your the camera? Both we are in the same height. If you don't mind. Yeah. Okay. I will do it maybe. Hold on a second. I will do. Yeah. Correct.
That's
Oh
as
my
far
God.
as and
Oh
I'm
yeah.
afraid.
Okay. We are in a good shape. Tell me a little bit about your background, Renzo. If I, I know you, but I want our audience to know your background a little bit, and then we talk about poetry. Where is the healthcare? How did you get into healthcare, and what is your background? Just give us a little bit of your journey into that one.
Sure. So I went to school for aerospace engineering and I switched to poetry with 4 credits to go, which my parents, who are immigrants, loved. That was not, it was,
I can
it was a
imagine
challenge,
that.
it was a challenging Christmas break. But I went into grad school for poetry, wanted to go into grad school for poetry. I got into a program at Cambridge. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to go to that program for a variety of different reasons. And I ended up doing communications and journalism and mass communications and a specialty in international intercultural communications, mass communications. And when I graduated, which was 2009, which was the year of the financial bubble, nobody I went to school with did anything they went to school for. And I was freelancing and I was making good money, but not steady money. And I live in Miami, Florida. Your viewers may or may not be aware it's one of the most expensive places to live in the U.S. Now it was relatively expensive back then. And I thought that there were two industries that benefited from inefficiency. The worse that you did, the more money they threw at you, and that was law and healthcare. So I decided to look for a job in healthcare. I started working for a company, a health services company in Miami. At the call center, within a week, I was doing projects. Then eventually, after 3 years of earning my stripes, there was a QNext implementation happening. This was around 2013 to 2014, and after that, I was offered interviews with a consulting firm that was called HTMS at the time. It eventually became Change Healthcare Consulting. And as I think you've mentioned before, and in the last time you and I spoke, I ended up working for a company called Change Healthcare. Um, And after 2 years of being a senior consultant, I took on a people leader role after I did a PBM, pharmacy benefit management implementation with a state Medicaid client. Um, it was intense because they wanted to do the implementation in 2 to 3 months, and it normally takes about 9 months to do. But the CEO at the time signed off on it, so I knew that I was able to, I knew that I was able, if there was any issues, I knew I was able to escalate. And we were successful. They offered me a position as the PMO lead because the PMO for the PBM area wasn't part of the enterprise PMO because they considered it a bit of an offshoot. It didn't fit their standards. And from there, a lot of lessons in being a leader. Uh, and, you know, took over well, not took over. I was given the product team for a while. I was given the proposal team. Um, I was given strategic initiatives as well, and eventually became a senior director and acted as a chief of staff during the valuation and acquisition period when United Health Group purchased Change Healthcare
Were
to
you
create.
moved to the Nashville at the time, or were you living in Nashville, or?
No, I've always lived in Miami, but I flew out. I There was a time where I flew out 4 weeks out of the month. Nashville was our headquarters. Our IT infrastructure place was in Dallas Fort Worth, and Medicaid offices were in Maine, and commercial offices were not. I was plus clients, right? Um, so when that was done, I acted as a chief of staff in order to make sure that our area was doing well, and eventually we were purchased by United Health Group. United eventually placed us with OptumRx, and I was um, offered, or I accepted, a VP position there for a few months. But after the third round, my position was eliminated after an acquisition, and that was fine. My team is still there; they're doing great. And you mentioned I do poetry. I focused on promoting the book for a bit, and then, I love what I do. I love coaching. I have like about 15 years of experience, so I started my own consulting firm, and very, very lucky so far, doing relatively well in healthcare projects along with other projects. It really has to do with management consulting, leadership consulting, executive consulting, etc.
Before I go into the poetry, I wanted to ask you a little bit about the healthcare side of it.
Of
American
course.
healthcare system is a paradox. It costs going up and the access going down. People are nobody is happy. Patients are not happy. Doctors are not happy. I don't know. The hospitals are closing. Where do you think this fundamental flaw in the system itself is a polity? I mean, where do you think this is a paradox? How can you solve this paradox? And what is the reason for this paradox?
I don't, I won't pretend to know what the answer to that is. What I do know is that it is it's such a large scale thing, right? It is such a complex organism that has grown for an extended period of time, where the original end goals, the processes may not lead there anymore, right? So there's a lot of waste. I mean, I live in Florida. It's the capital of fraud, waste, and abuse,
Broad
right?
and ways, yeah.
It's one of the reasons why I thought when I was younger, if I wanted to make some money, I needed to go into healthcare because there's just so much money thrown at it. I do think that there are attempts to make sure that CMS, when they certify claims processing MMIS systems, right, across the board, they're trying to provide a structure, right? Hopefully that helps. But for me, I think it's just the size. It's very complex. A lot of people have done a lot of things over the years. Not a lot of things have been documented. The purpose is lost, and then, in my experience, it's just that you're trying to feed the machine instead of getting the outcome that you want. If that makes
You
sense.
know, yeah. So let me talk with the healthcare. Now you're doing some healthcare consulting work, right? What kind of healthcare consulting you're doing nowadays?
Well, I have some NDAs, so I can't really get too far into it. But from a general perspective, because you're my friend, I'll let you know. From a general perspective, It really is a lot of just laying out strategy in the areas that I've developed an expertise in, but also it focuses on leadership development, because we have, I believe in the US, not just in healthcare, but across the board, we promote individual contributors to leadership positions, but we don't take the time to develop their skill set as leaders. It's a very different skill set to do than to enable others to do, right? So you take these individual contributors, you put them in leadership positions without the training, they're used to achieving on their own, and they may become bottlenecks because they want to be necessary. And that's not anything against them. It's how they've been trained, how they've been conditioned to succeed. So what I do is I go in, I understand what the issue is, I try to observe what's working, what's not working, and then hold up a mirror, right? It's more like coaching. Coaching is more like try it this way, make this turn, because they are very skilled, very knowledgeable resources. But it's a different thing that they're being asked to do. So it's developing that skill set, that competency to allow them to succeed in this new role, which allows others to succeed. If you're good at what you do, Ramana, you can only do 100% of what you
Yeah.
do. But if you're an effective leader, you can do 2,000%, you can do 3,000%,
Oh yeah.
etc.
Well said. Well said. That's what I need to learn also from you. You know that. You know that. What about this is AI, artificial intelligence. Let us talk about that a little bit. And then, are you using? What do you think of its role in healthcare and role in leadership? AI is going to play any role in this area? There's a big silent uh, just the life changing paradigm is waiting for us. We don't know what it is, but we how do you deal with this artificial intelligence itself? Are you using it? Are you skeptical about it? What is your plan? What is your idea on that one?
I think AI is a tool, right? I think the problem comes when you give up agency to the tool. When you get people, it said, like, just using ChatGPT. I'm sure most of your viewers are familiar with or have crossed paths with ChatGPT, which is a form of AI, right? At the bottom it says, like, hey, this may not be 100% right, but people just copy paste whatever they get from it and say, like, this is the truth without verifying what it is. It's that, think about AI as a tool that can help you. Let's take a step back. You want to cross-reference. You want to do, typically, what did you do? You use an Excel, you did vertical lookups, etc. AI can do that in fractions of a second, right? But the important thing is to verify that it's doing it correctly, because data is garbage in, garbage out. You need to make sure you have the right kind of data. You also need to make sure that there wasn't a snag, it wasn't being overused at the time, etc., and so forth. Your company may have, I said ChatGPT, you may be using Microsoft Copilot, right? There's different iterations of the thing. It can be incredibly useful as a tool as long as you verify that it's being used. But when you start depending on it, there's problems. Also, I think there's a lot of cost savings that you can do by incorporating AI to automate processes throughout, as a vendor and as a client within healthcare, right? It's just, from the client side, I know, for example, that there's a concern that, yeah, vendors are touting AI as a way to save, for cost savings, right? But are those cost savings being passed on to the client, or are they just remaining on the vendor side? So there's a lot of different aspects to the AI conversations that are happening now in healthcare from a lot of different perspectives. But I think A, it's a tool. B, it can be a very useful tool. But remember that you're wielding the tool. The second you give up agency to it, you're at a big disadvantage from the get-go, because then you can't verify or check the validity that what you're putting out there is true. And the problem is, if there was no consequence to that, that would be great. But at the end of the day, you are dealing with the livelihoods and health of different populations that depend on you, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. Well said. Actually, I wanted to repeat this very powerful statement you made. You should not hand over your agency to the something else. Your agency, handing over your agency to the to the unknown, some kind of a, even if they are more intelligent than us, handing over your agency means you lose your own character, own understanding, own philosophy. It's gone. So I think that is you well articulated that part. I think we have to be in control of our own agency. That philosophy has to be there. I always tell, this is my, you well said that in the way you articulated it. But I go a little bit of as a physicist. I'm going to, as a, we need to define a philosophy of care first, and then philosophy of care is the number one. Then define it. Taking care of sick. Nobody should suffer. Nobody should die on the street. The next one is the methodology, that is algorithms and mathematical algorithm modeling and all those things. The third one is technology. You should go, they should not conflict with the philosophy, any one of them. Any one of them should not conflict with each other. That kind of a thing we need to, because one of the things United Healthcare CEO says that, he said that, nobody with the right mind would design this kind of healthcare system. That's what he said. So
Hmm.
I think, our agency is such a powerful, it's our soul, our philosophy. We should not hand over that to the they
No,
can use a tool. It's a
I'm not
powerful
someone
statement you
who
made.
doesn't I'm not someone who believes that AI will never develop creativity. I think with enough iterations and enough training, it'll get to a place where it will be more efficient, right? It's just I don't think it's there yet. But like if you wanna if you wanna hang up a picture frame on your wall, right? If you want to do that and you want to use a hammer, like you're the one hammering it in. You have to
Mm.
see where the hammer is. You have to, with precision, like make sure you're hitting it at the center of mass so you don't create a scratch in your wall, so you don't make a hole in your wall, etc. AI is the hammer. And then you also don't want to use a screwdriver if you need a hammer, right? Like you have to have that understanding and that agency of what you are trying to achieve with the tool instead of just being manipulated by the tool and just being there doing nothing. You're going to lose your ability to discern, to think for yourself, right? To be able to research something that I mean, think anybody who's gone to grad school, I don't mean to minimize the experience, but really what grad school taught me is how to research. All
Mm.
the concepts are things that I can learn somewhere else, right?
Yeah,
It gave me tools to fish.
correct.
If we give that up, we're going to give up the ability to fish, as an example. So,
Renzo, I was born in a small village in India, very small village. Um, my father was a doctor there, teacher. He was a teacher in the high school, but he's also a doctor for the town, because that village, because there is no other doctor there. He had such a profound influence on me, on my family, and the entire generation of people. My father was, when he died, it's like losing a part of your soul. um,
hmm.
I became so attached to that my brothers are all well done, and they are all around the world. All his children and grandchildren are around the world right now, all over the world, because of him. In a small village, his vision, his contribution is a. The reason, one of the assistant that you saw that came in this podcast, is that worked for me from that village. In fact, very close to that village that I hired here. I don't know her, but I went there to hunting all the way to my village and find people close to that to work for me. It is really that kind of a connection you mentioned in one of the podcasts you do, and you talk about your father quite a bit. Tell us your journey with your father, and then your connection. It's just give me that background a little bit.
Oh, I thank you, Raman. I love talking about my dad. He so he was he was interesting. He was a very complex guy. So he was somebody who was incredibly intelligent, incredibly determined, incredibly hardworking. But he also was somebody that had blinders. So, like he was said to be valedictorian, but he got so focused and he overstudied and he stayed up and all that stuff, and then he ended up being salutatorian, right? So it was like this. He was just exhausting himself when he had enough to move forward. But he was a very driven guy. He was also a very loving guy, but he was also a very severely disciplined guy. He was a major in the army in Peru. Growing up, he was flying a lot. He was a pilot. He was a helicopter pilot. I think he was the second best pilot in the army, and he was the best sharpshooter from a helicopter in the army. And when we immigrated to the United States, it took a long time for him to be able to revalidate his pilot's license because he was, doing the H-1B back then through a company, and he honored that commitment. He worked for them, but eventually he found a job as a pilot after becoming a resident
Mm.
and able to do what he loved. But growing up, my dad, he would push me. He would push me in the sense that I would come home with like a 95, and he would look at my test and he would say, "Were you sick? Were you emotionally compromised?" I'm translating from Spanish. He's like, "Son, I see you have a 95. What could you have done differently to get 100?" And again, he's not someone who yells, right? He's not. He was just
That is a
very calm.
common language in Indian father's place.
Yeah. And it was just like it was just a tone that you didn't want to disappoint, right? So I would come home with 100, and he would say, "Were you sick? Son, I see here that there are 2 extra credit questions you chose not to answer. Why?" And I'd say, "Well, because I knew I had 100, so I didn't need to answer them." And he said, "God punishes pride. If you want 100, you have to study." So, long story short, even though he was a very loving, very kind guy, I grew up thinking that I was lovable because of what I could achieve, not because of who I was. And that took a lot of therapy to get over. And I remember that I would tell him this, and he would say, "Yeah, but look how good you turned out. Ha ha ha." And he would just walk away. But my dad passed away from pancreatic cancer in 2020.
Sorry to hear
And
that.
he
Yeah.
battled it for
Which
3
year he
years.
passed away? Which year?
2020.
During the
2020.
pandemic.
In the
Just
middle of
pandemic.
it.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
He was diagnosed and they gave him 3 months, but he lasted for 3 years. And for most of that time, without the need for morphine, doing exercise, kettlebells, like still being relatively strong and healthy, even though he had pancreatic cancer, so his weight was diminishing, right? I'm 6 foot, about 175 pounds. My dad was 5'11", about 190 to 200, depending on how much he enjoyed my mom's cooking that week or whatever. And he ended up weighing 115 pounds. So it was impactful. But there was one morning where it was in the pandemic, so I turned the backyard. We all moved into the house where I grew up in to help take care of my dad, my sister, my brother-in-law, me, their kids, our dogs, everybody in a 3-bedroom house. It was intense, but it was the only way we were able to make it through. And I converted the backyard into a gym. I love exercising and all that stuff. And I was doing yoga, and my dad, it was maybe about a month and a half before he passed away. He was still mobile on his own because when the decline came, it was very fast. So he came outside and he said, "Son, I'm worried about you. You're doing this thing that isn't Catholic. The yoga is not Catholic." And I'm like, "Okay." That day, for some reason, I had patience because normally that would trigger me. But I'm like, "No, Dad, yoga is, I was in a car accident. Yoga is the only thing that healed me. So I was able to run marathons again. And I'm always somebody who thinks about the future. Yoga, I have to be uncomfortable in the now, right? If I'm doing yoga, if I'm doing like a Warrior 3 and I'm thinking about tomorrow or the next thing, I'm going to fall on my face. I have to be uncomfortable in the moment and exist in it, right?" So we had a conversation about it, and it was a beautiful conversation. And we ended up talking for like about an hour and a half, just out there. It wasn't too hot, in the backyard with, like air and birds flying and all that stuff. It was very idyllic. And out of nowhere, Ramana, he said, "I know I made you feel like you weren't good enough growing up. And I'm sorry." He had never apologized. He had never recognized that it damaged me, right? He had never taken accountability, and it just blew me away. And then he said, "I'm your father. I know you. I love you. You are never going to be happy if you do things half-assed. But I'm sorry. I just didn't have the language to tell you what I'm telling you now." It was the first time, even with cancer, that I saw my dad vulnerable, right? It's the first time I saw him as an 8-year-old kid who wouldn't get attention in his house unless he excelled because his dad was a gastrointestinal surgeon, his mother was a university professor, a social activist, an opera singer, and that's the only way he stood out from his brothers. And I was like, oh, I get it now. Like I understand him a little bit more now. And the gift that he gave me that day is, even though him and I had a great relationship, I still carried that resentment, right? Whether I was aware of it or not. Now, I don't. I'm free. I'm light, right? But it was because he also defined his value by what he could achieve. And he thought he was passing that on to me. And he wasn't wrong. Like, I do need to go 100% in whatever I do. I do need that as a personality trait. It's how I am. But the way that I do it now is because I enjoy it, but it doesn't define who I am. After my position was eliminated, for example, work is the only place that makes you feel expendable and indispensable at the same time. I need to work 80 hours a week because I'm the only one who could do this, or if not, they fire me. So are you the only one who could do this, or are they going to fire you? Like, what is it? It doesn't make logical sense, right? But if my identity was still tied to achievement, it would have been an incredibly difficult year for me to even get out of bed.
Renzo, every guy's the ultimate compliment is father saying that. Even for me, that is a everyone in the father saying you did a good son. That's not easy to get a compliment. Not from the president of a country or big Nobel Prize. I think father saying that, that's every guy's dream. That's the one thing they say. My father say you did very well, son. That is the ultimate compliment to that. So you got that compliment. A lot of people don't get that. That's why they always say, if I die, I want to see my father one more time. That's what a lot of guys say. That is that is the biggest regret for a lot of people too. My father is very proud of me at the end. He didn't see. He's from a village doctor, and then he would have been so happy that I'm interviewing all these doctors from Stanford and Harvard and John. He would have been more than anything else, financial, anything. He would have been the most happiest person in the world. He didn't see that. That's the only regret I have. But if I die, that I ask him, say hello, Dad. I did this. So it is ultimate, as you mentioned. That is. It is a very powerful statement you did. So what is you have another thing is I wanted to ask you about you wrote you have written about it. That's what I'm going to ask you. Mental health challenges. You did go through a lot of mental health episodes. Tell me a little bit about your journey. What caused you that is deep depression and or anxiety, whatever it is. What can
Oh,
you run through that journey of your
yeah.
mental health?
So I can start from the beginning. Like, as a kid, I was apparently I had a very high IQ. My parents found this out because they were driving one day when I was about 2.5, and they thought I was reading road signs, and they're like, "How cute! He memorized it." Until I got to a road sign that there was no way I could memorize. So they took me to a psychologist, and around the same time, my dad had taken me to see my grandfather's grave, and he explained to me, we grew up Catholic, right? So he explained to me, "Oh, your grandfather's in there, and he's waiting for God to come resuscitate, like everybody who passed away, and he's there until God takes him out." And apparently, like 3 days later, I woke up crying, like, "I don't want to spend eternity in a box. I don't want to spend eternity in a box." When I was a kid, like, eternity, the concept, like, I'm not scared of, like, I love jumping out of planes. I love bungee jumping. I love paragliding. I love all of that stuff, much to my girlfriend's anxiety. I scary movies don't bother me. I'm not afraid of ghosts. I'm not really superstitious. Abstract concepts like infinity freak me out, right? I remember going to sleep and seeing a figure eight in my head and being like, ah. So, and it's because like, if eternity exists, is there beauty, right? Like, it's a very Blakean romantic concept, right? Is a rose beautiful because it's finite, right? So I was dealing with those things as a kid. Also because I was, I had a high IQ. There were more things, like I was always worried about consequences. Like I learned from others, and that added to anxiety. You tie that into the whole my worth is only determined by what I need to achieve. I need to achieve. I need to achieve. I need to achieve. It was incredibly stressful, and it got to the point where when I wasn't able to go to Cambridge for poetry, when I wasn't able to go to grad school for poetry, I kind of turned that part of me off, which was a bit of a release valve, and I focused on being successful in my career to make money. Because as an immigrant growing up, money equaled safety, right? Like I know I grew up watching my parents say that they ate already and for us to eat, knowing that they hadn't eaten dinner. They were lying to me, and I was too young to understand why. I There were times where we had to ask for money to pay for the rent, or the mortgage if we were very lucky in order to get mortgage, even though we were in a bad financial situation. I know what it's like to have your lights turned off, right? And I grew up with this determination to never go through that, right? And I wanted to make money because money equals safety. But and I think your viewers know, that there will never be enough safety. So there will never be enough money, right? Money is not, again, it's a tool. It shouldn't be the end goal. It's supposed to allow you to do things with it, right?
Correct.
So I got to a point where I was financially stable. And then I got to a point where I was financially stable enough that my family, my extended family, was financially stable. And I started doing well in my career, and I was still very unhappy. And the reason for that was a good friend of mine asked me, what are you passionate about? And I couldn't answer him because I was also a people pleaser, right? So you tie all those
Yeah.
things together. Everything that I could name was in relation to someone else. And I realized that I needed to work some things out, that I wasn't able to do it on my own, that I needed to find out what I enjoyed, which is where travel came in, which is where poetry art came in, which is where more exercise came in, like things that I enjoy doing. Getting lost in different cities and meeting new people and learning different languages. These are all things that fill my cup. And then after that, very soon after that, came about a 7-year period where I thought life had stopped giving me things and started taking them away. My dad died, my grandmother had died, my best friend's mom died, my dog died, my cousin who was my age was run over by an SUV, my little cousin had a heart defect nobody knew about and he passed away at 22. A number of friends had passed away, and I realized after my dad passed that I was moving too fast to grieve, right? So therapy gave me the tools to be able to manage that grief in a productive way through poetry, through my work, through coaching people, and being a bridge, helping bridge understanding, right? Because let's say you and I are trying to solve a problem, a healthcare problem. If I try to do it alone, I only have my experience and my framework to see it. My lens is limited, but together with yours, we have a wider lens. We have more options. We have different ways of seeing things. And that comes from art, right? If you look at a work of art, you're creating an analytical relationship between yourself and an object, which means by definition, you're seeing it from a different perspective, which allows for empathy, right? These are the things and these are the techniques that I've used to build teams and coach resources as well. So I'm a very big proponent of therapy. You know, if you're having issues, or finding somebody to talk to, having somebody to understand, maybe not give advice, maybe not tell what to do, but just listen and understand what you're going through to validate your feelings and that you are enough, right? You're not missing anything. So maybe that's a bit of a run on answer to your
No,
question.
no, no, no. This is the kind of thing that I we all go through once in a while in retrospective. But this is important one. Visit that, visit what is your purpose? What is, the podcast is doesn't mean, if I would have been in computer science and I would have been a billionaire with this. I was one of the first few guys learning computers in 1980s, but I was not. I did not. It did not, connect with me. It's a healthcare was my father. I was watching my father is an inspiration that really did that. Poetry. I said that when my son left my school, I read about the Khalil Gibran, and I saw the poem. Really kind of touched me. It's such a powerful way of telling the philosophy and the life itself. So, you are a award-winning poet. Can you read a couple of, I wanted to present a topic. You're asking me a topic. I'm going to present a topic, and then we come back, and I will ask you about some couple of poems. You can read it for me, okay, from your
Of
book.
course, happy to.
Okay, let me bring my presentation. Yesterday I did that, but I think I liked it so much. I think this is a this is a you're going to like it. Is kind of a very interesting topic. It is a okay. This is a I'm going to introduce you a woman from this. I introduced yesterday, but I'm going to do that again because it's a very important concept. People are not getting it. I want to make sure that um, in the let me put on the side. Yeah. So Teriko Mishizuma, she's from Japan. She came to the United States in 1939 to study medicine, but she went into so that's where she went to Lincoln, Nebraska. My friend is from. I've been to Lincoln actually. You believe me or not. So instead of because English is challenging for her, and then instead of studying medicine, she studied sewing in 1939. Interesting moment. But this unremarkable woman, she went back to Japan after that. In 1950, she was kind of a cooking, cleaning, taking care of children, and sewing and writing. So she was kind of exhausted, and she wrote an article about a woman's life, woman, woman's ideas for creation of a new life in 1950 in a Japanese magazine. It took, and also she is doing a sewing to exchange for the fresh vegetable, because 1950 just right after the Second World War, right? So she was doing that. You can comment anytime, Renzo. If you want to make any comment, you're more than welcome.
Oh,
So
I'm learning from you, right?
what she did was she came up with a brilliant idea during the she this is a Japanese tradition, Firio Kippo. It is called caring relationship tickets. She introduced the concept of time is the most valuable currency. So she was exhausted as a mother, taking care of children, taking care of all the household stuff. It's not easy. So she's writing same time. Her article became so famous, then she introduced this concept called volunteer time bank. Volunteer time banking, a concept she introduced, very powerful. Time as a currency. So what it is that Asha, can you hear me now?
I can hear you now.
Yeah, okay. So So what she did was that she's time banking. You don't deposit money; you deposit time is served. So what are the thing is problem in Japan is elderly caring people, elder people are having a problems. There is no insurance there. There's no social structure is not there to support the elderly care. Even still that is a problem now. So what she suggested is all the young people, you go and serve, you put the time, and whatever the time you spend with the elder people, put in the deposit in the bank, and the another person come down and teach you mathematics or calculus or something like that. So you can exchange the time. So the time banking is a time exchange. She became a time trader, trader of time. So she introduced this powerful concept. It took off big way in the world actually. United States is a 400 right now, 480 time banks there in the United States. Worldwide, there is 1,000 banks. In California, it's a Bay Area time bank. There is no money. It's all time. We deposit the time and spend the time. That is a time is a new currency. So in India, it started time banking started it, service to human to service to God. There is an Indian proverb saying that Manava Seva, Madhava Seva, that is service to humans to service to God. This is a powerful way of doing the time exchange. So what they did was economically, they connected the economic sphere to social sphere. She connected beautifully through this kind of a time banking, thinking money through the time. That's what she did. That's a brilliant move. Is entrepreneurship with the time spent, volunteerism with entrepreneurship. It's a beautifully she did that. So, so there's a two problems in the United States we are having now. Rural transportation. If you are in the rural Georgia, Alabama, you don't have the right shares. There's no place to. You cannot get the Uber or Lyft or any place. So it's a neighbors has to give the ride. The mobile people, patients or older people who cannot drive, somebody has to drive them. But instead of asking and begging everybody and asking cousins, this is a time banking can do the job. So doctors can accommodate the time banking, introduce the time banking to them. It's a social prescribing. This is a prescription actually in some countries now. So in England also the NHS started a social prescription. So rural transportation problem can be solved. Epidemic loneliness. A lot of older people are really suffering in this country with the loneliness is the biggest challenge. Epidemic actually. So the young people can go there, learn from them, and then they can deposit that time. That is a beautifully the time banking can do their job. So this is the infrastructure. Time banking can be implemented through to hospitals, health plans, rural clinics, universities, coffee shops, NGOs. All of them can be implemented through the time banking. So actually, cryptocurrency started a time banking. Actually, crypto time. Not just money. Time is a deposit. You spend the time. So the time banking, one of the burnout, you can sort out the burnout plan among the healthcare workers. They always healthcare providers complain about uncompensated hours. So you can put a time bank, like ATM machine in the corridors of hospital, and then they deposit the extra the hours, uncompensated hours. They do that. Maybe their colleague or somebody else can compensate that different way. It's a brilliant idea. So in my view, so you can do escort to the doctors, prescription pickups for you can do that, grocery shopping, in-home and photo visits, and alterations, minor home repairs. All of them are technology, teaching technology to the elders. These are all could be connected with the time banking. So time banking is a very powerful phenomena. So actually, Teruko, she was honored the Yvonne Prize, the very highest civilian award in Japan. She won. She's a pioneer trader of time as a currency. She died she lived in 1996. She lived a long time. So that is the. Thank you for listening. But it is a time bank is a we need to that is such a requirement nowadays. We need that love and compassion to be there. What do you think, Renzo?
It's funny because I was having a conversation with a friend the other day, and we were saying that the only thing you can't get back, the only resource that's finite you have truly is time. Um, so the recognition of its value and creating a banking system around it has, I definitely want to do more research into her, and I will after we're
Yeah,
done today.
thank you.
Thank you. this. What made
Okay.
you want to talk about her today?
I think one of the things you always talk about love and compassion and your poetry and all those things. That's why I want to listen. Your poetry is a very soul touching in my view. You are award winning poet. You won the awards for it. So tell us that's a compassion that she has. She was exhausted, and then she wanted to help the elderly people. She was compassionate of the older people are suffering in Japan. Japan is a bigger problem now. Elderly people are one of the loneliness is a epidemic in Japan and the United States. So I think that is I connected. I think you would be a right guy to present these kind of things. That's what I thought. But anyway, so that is so. Tell me about your poetry a little bit and read a couple of. Is it a Spanish series you have written in Spanish or you have written in English?
Spanish, French, English. I wanna, I also learned Italian and Portuguese, so I want to do more poems in those languages. And I just, my girlfriend is Turkish, so I've spent over a year on Duolingo trying to learn Turkish, which means I need to do something else and take formal classes because I think I've gotten as far as I'm going to go on Duolingo. Um, but no, I'm fascinated by knowing as many languages because the thing is, there's so much that's lost in translation, right, Ramana? Like in Portuguese, the concept of saudade, like it means nostalgia, but it means more than that, right?
Yeah.
And it's hard to translate. And there's so many beautiful
I
poems that
want
I
to
would love
interrupt you on one, if you don't mind. This is a very important thing you said that. Yesterday I was watching a video, Indian video, very in India has 14 languages. I was watching a
Yeah.
video. In the video, Telugu language came in. It's my language. One of the thing is talking about life and death and all the people who passed away. Such a beautiful expression in my language. It did that. I don't think I can translate in English or any other language. It is so difficult to translate that part, that feeling. You're absolutely right. Yeah, just go ahead. Sorry for interrupting you.
No, no, it's you're highlighting the point, right? There's just so much to convey, to learn from different cultures. So I thought it was important to write in different languages. What I'm working on right now is I studied poetry, right?
Oh,
So I know enough to know that I don't know very much at all. So I researched, God, over like 170 different forms of poetry that I wasn't familiar with a lot of Irish verses, Welsh medieval verses, French verses, Italian verses. And I've been trying to use those forms and use modern language and modern themes and see if I can use those forms to convey the message. That's kind of what I'm playing around
yeah.
with now.
What is the
Um,
name of your book? The
oh, my
book.
book.
Oh, yeah. What
That's
is
what I
it?
went to when my camera was off. So
I cannot see the mirror, but can you read the name of the
yeah,
still?
the book is still Still. Still.
Still. Okay.
Yes. That
So
I
tell
think
us
it's
about the book a little bit.
yeah. So the book came out. Gosh, it's gonna be 3 years ago now. 2 year, 3 years ago. Gonna be 3 years if not, if it hasn't been. And actually, I can tell you right now how long it's been.
Where they can buy that book? Amazon, or is it available in
It's been
Amazon?
2 years. No, you can buy it on Barnes and Noble, Amazon. If you're in Miami and local bookstores, if not anywhere, the Ingram Spark, you can ask for it at your local bookstore wherever you are as well. It's available in hardcover, paperback, Kindle, and I've done the audiobook myself. So I
Oh,
did
very
that.
good.
And again, the Kindle is 99 cents. It will always be 99 cents because I think art should be accessible, right? If you want to pick up a poetry book, and I can make it free, but if you have, because Amazon won't let you. So, but if you have $1, you can get a poetry book. You can get mine if you
Yeah,
like.
excellent
My
idea.
goal is that if you like some of my stuff, then go find other poetry books and see what resonates with you. And then
Eh,
hopefully you will want to be inspired to create something because in this world, it's so easy to tear things down. We're so focused on criticism, right? But
Yes.
it takes a special drive. It takes some accountability to create. So I think it's
In-
incredibly important.
Renzo, can you read a one verse in Spanish and then turning that into English? That would be good, just to get a grasp of what that is.
Sure.
Yeah, any verse that you think that is touches, you feel that one verse in Spanish. Read about. Unfortunately, I don't know Spanish, but people, some
Sure.
people.
I have some poems that are both in English and Spanish.
Okay,
Uh,
one poem. Read about the English and Spanish
okay,
first, and then English next.
Spanish first. So this one is called Antigua Belleza. And I wrote it when I was after my dad passed and all of the probate stuff was handled, everything that needed to be handled was handled. Um, I ran out of things to do. I had no more lists, so then I had to process my grief. And I was very lucky that a good friend of mine lived in Antigua and recommended a really beautiful resort where she knew the owner, so they gave me a special price. And it was called Galley Bay in Antigua. And I went there for about a week and a half, 2 weeks, I believe, and just by myself with a room in front of the ocean to process my grief. That's what I did. And this poem was written at that place.
Okay.
So it's called Antigua Belleza. Bajo cielos caribeños, latiendo al ritmo de los tambores, descansa el corazón de Antigua, acurrucado en el suave cantar de una marea compuesta por zafiros, esmeraldas y susurros, casi casi, pero no totalmente olvidados. Fantasmas corporales de antiguos amores. No esperaba descubrir el divino tesoro de la paz entre tus muslos de arena soleada. Tuve que encontrarte para saber que me hacías falta, que te perdí sin tenerte, que tu libertad me pertenece. El verde de tus hojas florece cada vez más, tejiendo una corona que santifica nuestros cuerpos, bautizados en el cantar de los grillos al anochecer, regalándonos su serenata para conmemorar que existimos. And then this is the English version of the poem. It's called Galley Bay. Beneath Caribbean skies, beating to the rhythm of steel drums, rests the heart of Antigua, lulled with the soft singing of a tide, composed of sapphires, emeralds, and whispers, almost but not completely forgotten, corporeal phantoms of ancient loves. I did not expect to discover the divine treasure of peace between your sun-kissed mounds of sands. I had to find you to know that I needed you, that I've lost you without having had you, that your freedom belongs to me. The green of your leaves blooms more and more, weaving a crown that anoints our bodies, baptized in the cricket's song at dusk, gifting us their serenade to commemorate our existence.
Thank you, Renzo. Thank you for joining with me. It came to an end almost in our podcast. You're always it's always delightful to have you on my podcast. You're just such a delightful guy. And then it is a really a human expression is one of the things you do very well, how to express you as a human. That's the most important. We forget we are all politics, religion, caste, and creed, all this nonsense. But at the touch the bottom of the humanity. Thank you so much, Renzo. If you want to say one final word, it's up to you. Go ahead, please.
I just want to take the opportunity to again thank you for sharing your platform with me. I always enjoy talking to you. I feel that we're friends as well, even though we haven't met. It's always a pleasure to chat with you and keep doing what you're doing. I love seeing what you put out. I love learning about all these interesting friends of yours in all of these different disciplines, and I treasure your role as a bridge, as a connector. So once again, Ramana, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Renzo. Good night, all of you.
We are retelling their stories through our patented designs that can be worn on scrubs, t-shirts, printed on conference bags, and endless other promotional materials. Daily Wear for Medicine is the first ever of its kind to create curiosity in medicine through visual art. We at MedBricks are celebrating unsung heroes of the past who made enormous contributions to the field of medicine through our unique campaign called Daily Wear for Medicine. You can wear it, carry it, and give it.